So Noam has come up with, whenever people ask Noam about, well, what could be done, he always has the same solution. He said, well, you have to get out, you have to be active, you have to be an activist. You have to get out of the streets. He's done it himself. And you have to fight for things, and if you do fight for things, why, there will be an improvement. Things will get better. In other words, so Noam is espousing some solid things, and in reality, one of those solid things is that we have the capacity to fight for our rights. If somebody is unfair to you or abuses you or something, you will find within yourself, if you have the gumption to take it up, and if you choose to take it up, the ability to push back, as they say, fight for your rights. Say, no, that's not right. This is what's right. I stand for this, and you're going to have to come around and stop abusing me and carrying on like this, because I'm not going to stand for it. So we have that capacity. And through the many things we've seen in the past, people have stood up and they have fought for their rights. But then, when we go further, and we see, okay, so because he says, and people say, there's a good result from this. And things have gotten better because of it. But, when we look at the actual results, let's take, civil rights, for instance, common thing in this country. Well, you see, there were results, or there seemed to be results. Then there was a lot of kind of cleverness on the part of the adversary, the ones who didn't want to have civil rights for everyone, to kind of subvert any progress that was made. And so, from that we could decide, we could conclude that, because we can see sometimes it's successful, but almost always, when it is successful, let's say you have an oppressive dictator, an authoritarian person, and somebody else, some young, noble person, or maybe not so young, but a noble person, they stand up and they get a bunch of people, followers, people that agree with them, to push back, and let's say that they win, and so they get to have the new leader comes in. He's more noble. He's more human-oriented. He's not. In other words, we all know by now what this means. He's not interested in power. He's not interested in accumulating a lot of things and stuff for himself. He's interested in us being the one human soul, having a good life, and being treated fairly, and having we all have equal opportunities to do things and stuff. And so sometimes that's successful. And you might say that, for instance, if you're an American and you're a little bit, haven't looked into things too much, you might say, well, that's the case with America. Look at America, and look at Norway, and look at Denmark. There's places, and we do know that there are countries at times where people seem to be having a fear, and they do have a better life. They have more rights, they have health care, blah, blah, blah. They have a good education and so forth. We look at all these things, human things that we like to have. We like to be able to have access to knowledge and learn things. All kinds of things that are good things that come about. But if we step back then and look at the whole picture, we see this as if there is a continual and ongoing war. That war is between the people who are alive and healthy and sane and normal and care about each other. They care about themselves, but they also care about other people. they want us all to, they want to do things which make sense and don't favor one group greatly over another. Kind of bring us all along to a happy life on the earth. That's generally been the goal of noble people. But you know, so but does it work? It doesn't seem to ever like completely resolve itself, so it works a long time over a long, and then everybody learns and starts to become, so we start to have a more and more peaceful life on the earth, because it seems there is an adversary, and the adversary is other people that look just like us, and pretty much, and maybe not so much gray hair, but they look like us and they act like us, but they don't care about those things. They care about other things. They care about winning. They care about being number one. They look down on other people. All kinds of things we're all very familiar with now. It's just no fun at all. But it just keeps going on and on. So here's the question then. You can ask yourself about your mind. Why is it that your mind will continue to come up with things which just seem great and wonderful? And it does. It comes up with wonderful things. But then when you put it into practice, there's another side that kind of takes it away and doesn't allow it to happen, or finds a way to kind of pretty quickly, subvert those noble ideas. So you could question legitimately. After a while, you can say, this, it's like if you were in construction and you had a hammer that kind of worked pretty well and it just kept not working that well, and after a while you'd say to yourself, maybe this hammer is just not good enough. So let's make a better hammer. And sure enough, if you ever had a Vaughan hammer, you know that it can be done. You can make a really nice Vaughan hammer. A lot of people won't use them. They can't tell the difference. But if you can, you can tell there's quite a bit of difference. The balance is better, just the whole feel of the thing, the weight, the metals, and the metal they use, and just how they do everything. So when you use that hammer, it works really well for you. So that's one answer, that you could improve the mind using that analogy. You say, let's get a better mind. Let's improve the mind. People try to do that. They take drugs, and they try to take pills and things, vitamins. They learn what makes the brain work better and everything like that. So always finding better ways to do things with their mind, make their mind work better. But, we still have the same issue, the same problem, because, so, you can ask the question, and I've asked that question. Well, is that it then, or is it just got to keep improving the mind? A lot of people think so, because they don't recognize the existence of anything else but what they themselves are able to perceive, and that's a good way to go about things. It involves common sense. If somebody tells you that a whole bunch of people will do something, and you've been around, you've seen whole bunches of people before, and they never ever do that. Well, you could think, well, no, I don't think that's right, So, but you're kind of they don't include what we call the spiritual aspect of anything in their thinking. When they talk about how human beings work, they don't include a spiritual aspect. Generally, scientists don't, because of some things which are really quite silly that they've done. Namely, scientists have said, well, they're not going to look at spiritual things, but then they try to figure out life, and they get into areas which are spiritual, and they say, well, no, that's not it, because we don't look at things spiritually. But yet, and in the end, they become experts on what's spiritual, what the actual reality is. In other words, the spiritual reality as well. And they often are just dumbfounded and don't see how something can happen. So they say things like, well, subconsciously you did this and this, and they're talking about actually the inner life. They call it the subconscious, because from their point of view, they're not conscious of it. It just comes up wherever it comes from. They don't know, they don't know where it came from. So this is the point of, stay with me here, this is the point of what the messengers of God have said, whether they be the Muslims, the Jews, the Christians, major messengers of God, which is they say to tell you to do things which don't really involve learning a lot of stuff and using your mind a lot. They involve activities which will tend to lessen the use of your mind to some degree. That will lessen the use of the dominance and the power within you of the various forces which we all have, your passions, your feelings, your mental acuity, your mind working all the time, or your heart being very strong, working all the time, taking everything on from that point of view. Or physically, if you're quite strong, everything becomes about, being physically strong, and that's the best way, and everything else. They're telling you not to do that. Now, I'm going to kind of cut to the chase, because I don't know that you or myself or anybody else would actually realize this very easily. The reason why the mind is not a suitable tool on its own, or even mostly at all, to figure out what life is about, is because the mind, if you really look at it, is a limited, it's a limited tool. It's a limited facility that you have. It depends on the information that's in your brain, whether you've learned it from yourself or from somebody else. Where your brain is like a data collector. It collects all this data, all these gigabytes of knowledge. Your memory depends on all those things, and it comes to a conclusion. Well, I don't think that's right, because blah blah blah. Your mind relates to those things, and your mind actually works quite well when it is dealing with finite number of things in a set. Look at something like wood. Okay, well, your mind can go right to work, and because there's just a finite number, of wood. Wood has so many. There's so many things, trees, whatever, that produce wood. You can categorize each of them, measure how strong they are, which ones work best for this and for that. Same thing with metals and so on and so forth. Then you can decide which is the best one. But when it comes to something that is unlimited, let's say there was an unlimited variety and difference in trees, and it's changed to some degree, let's say, why then the mind begins to kind of not really be quite sure what to do. It keeps looking and looking at it, because it's sure it can get a limited answer to an unlimited problem. So the mind is maybe I'm not making a very strong case for it, The mind is limited in its nature. That's why it doesn't work when it comes to a pretty much of an infinite situation, which is what you're dealing with on the earth, whether you realize it or not. There are forces and things going on which are infinite in nature, which you kind of can see if you use your common sense, but you can't understand them from the point of view of your mind. For example, when you talk about the infinite universe, which people do, then the mind will say, well, yeah, but what's the limit of it? I mean, what is the limit of it? Where does it stop? And what is beyond that? People make videos about this to try to figure out, well, okay. So what they're really saying is a very simple thing. They're saying that the mind is limited. You can't just say, well, yeah, sure, of course. It just goes on and on. And, whatever. It's not the way the mind works. So therefore, it occludes by its very nature the biggest aspect of reality that it turns out that there is, which is that it's infinite. And I can talk about it being infinite, that's as a concept, but it doesn't make you understand nothing. You see it's infinite, well, yeah, well, so what? Yeah, what does that mean? So the messengers of God will tell you to surrender yourself, to submit yourself, to follow certain practices which will lead you, instead of relying on your own faculties that you have, which you can use very well to make the ring that you're making, or make the machine, or program the computer, or make the computer. For those kind of limited things, they're limited. The mind works very well, but in terms of life itself, how you live here and what you understand, the messengers of God tell you to do something else. And they tell you that there is a God, and that God is infinite, and that in order to have a successful life, and that God is, a lot of times people will say that God is love. That's the experience they have when they have a death, and they come, not a near death, they have a near death, they come back and they tell you about the universe and how they can just be one with everything, they can understand everything, I mean, all kinds of things like that, and that God is love. And they just felt absolutely fabulous. So you said, well, yeah, that's great, but I mean, it's hard to get with that program a bit, although people do. They do become, and can be very loving and very generous and very helpful to each other and to themselves. But on the whole, people will have trouble with that because they haven't experienced it, and what they're experiencing here on the earth is kind of not quite like that. So, well, sometimes things are good, and sometimes they're not good. Sometimes people are very nice and make you feel good, and other times, they do things that just aren't fun at all, let's just say. It can cause you whatever. But so yeah, we'll go on to some part 3.